What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and it's time for my Week 8 college football playoff predictions, and I have made some changes. A lot happened this past weekend, of course, huge Saturday in college football. And again, I've changed my mind on some of my picks. I don't feel confident about these picks. There are still a few teams that I'd like to see play some bigger games before I know for sure how I feel about those teams. And so, again, I don't feel great about these picks, but here they are. We're going to start with my number one team. And this is a team that I have not even had in my playoff bracket so far this season. This is a team that really impressed me on Saturday, and maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I'm not. I've got the Michigan Wolverines finishing at number one in the country, going undefeated. I have them beating Ohio State. I know that game is on the road. But just looking at what they did to Penn State, the way they were able to run the football against pretty good defense. They've got a passing attack with J.J. McCarthy now, talented receivers. The defense is really good. They did not, I mean, they might be better overall than they were last year. I know they lost some great players, but this team they're a complete team. And when you look at the matchup against Ohio State, they were able to kind of bully them last year. And there's really nothing that tells me that they're not going to be able to do that again. Now, I think Ohio State is better than they were last year. The game is in Columbus, and that's why I'm having a really, really hard time picking that game. Just kind of going back and forth in my head. I want to see Ohio State play Penn State, or even Iowa against a really good Iowa defense on Saturday. I want to see that before I'm ready to go all in on the Buckeyes. I'm not giving up on them because I just don't know. I just haven't seen them play a great team, so I just don't know how good they are. I know how good Michigan is. I'm going to go with the team that won last year. I think Michigan wins that game, and I think they win easily in the Big Ten Championship, and they go undefeated. That might kind of give you a hint on some of my other picks, than me having them at number one. Number two is Clemson. I think Clemson will go undefeated. I don't think they're going to be the second best team in the country at the end of the year. But I just think they're going to be undefeated, and I don't think there will be any other undefeated teams. Again, I'm probably giving away some other picks here. But, yeah, I think Clemson it's hard to see them losing a game. If they can get past Syracuse on Saturday, Notre Dame, not great. Miami has been awful compared to what I expected them to be. I mean, they could play an explosive North Carolina offense in the ACC Championship. Upsets do happen, so I'm not going to say there's no way. But Clemson's just getting better and better, and it feels like they're starting to hit their stride and look like that Clemson team that we have seen in the past. So I just don't see them losing a game, and because they go undefeated, I think that will put them at number two. Number three for me is Alabama. I think Alabama will bounce back from this loss to Tennessee. I think they will go on and win the SEC Championship. They won't lose another game. It's possible that the committee would actually put Alabama at 2 over Clemson, just because we know they love Alabama and because they would have a pretty good resume with the win over Georgia, win over Ole Miss. I don't know. The resume wouldn't be super great. I guess it would depend on, is Texas a top 10 team at the end of the year, things like that. So it's possible that Alabama could be at number 2, but either way, 2 and 3 here, this would be the matchup. I just look at Alabama, and I look at Bryce Young, and I think he's the best player in the country, and he put his team in position to beat Tennessee. They just missed the field goal, and I said in my prediction video, I trusted him at the end of the game to win the game for them. Maybe they should have gone a little more aggressive, tried to score a touchdown instead of kicking the field goal, but Bryce Young at the end of the game, I mean, there's no quarterback in the country that I'd rather have. I mean, the guy is so special. I think he could win the Heisman again this year. I think the loss maybe will hurt him, but, I mean, he's really, really good. And the defense, we know what Nick Saban can do. They're going to make adjustments. They're not going to commit that many penalties. I mean, they had a record number of penalties against Tennessee. That was an absolutely terrible performance by Alabama, really across the board, except for Bryce Young. He played great. Jahmyr Gibbs played great. I think they cleaned some of those things up, and at the end of the year, this team is really, really good, and I think they're good enough to beat Georgia in the SEC Championship. But I think Georgia stays in the playoff. I think that'll be their only loss. Yes, I've got Georgia beating Tennessee. Everyone's wanting to say that Tennessee's going to win that game. They might, but I'm still taking Georgia, playing at home with the defense they have. I think Georgia has a better defense than Alabama, and I think they will slow them down a little bit. Hopefully, for them, they maybe won't make as many mistakes as Alabama did. Playing at home, like I said, is going to be a big boost for them. So I think Georgia will beat Tennessee. I think they finish 12-0 and then lose to Alabama in the SEC Championship in another great game. All right, how about the teams that I considered? Ohio State, I think they're sitting there at 11-1, just missing out because of the loss to Michigan. Again, I'm back and forth on that game. Next week, I might have Ohio State in here. I'm back and forth on that game. Cannot decide how it's going to go. Tennessee, I think, will only lose to Georgia. There are some games where they could trip up. Kentucky, maybe they get upset on the road at South Carolina or something like that. I don't see that happening. I think this offense is just too good. So I think Tennessee goes 11-1 with that only loss coming to Georgia. And then I'm going to stick with Oregon winning out. I think that this team can do it. It will be an interesting conversation for them, getting left out of the playoff. But I think if it comes down to them in Georgia, you've got to go back to that head-to-head. You cannot put Oregon in over Georgia. That would not make any sense when Georgia absolutely destroyed them. I know the conference championship thing and all that, but no, I think Oregon would be in. I think you can maybe make a better case for Ohio State getting in. If their only loss was the #1 team in the country in a close game, maybe the Buckeyes get in over Georgia, but I think it would be Georgia. These teams, though, would definitely be under consideration. So let's go back to the bracket. I'm going to pick who I think will win it all now. All right, Michigan and Georgia. Georgia, as for the most part, looked really, really good. They looked like the best team in the country. I know they had a couple of rough games in there. I can't really explain that. But you look at the rest of their games, they've absolutely dominated. This is a really talented team. Michigan, I think, is better than they were last year. And where I think this game could be different is J.J. McCarthy. He gives them something in the passing game that they just didn't get from Cade McNamara last year. That'll open up the run game a little bit more for them. He can maybe use his legs in this game. And I think that Michigan, last year is a huge deal getting to the college football playoff. This year, I think they get over the hump and they win a playoff game. I'm now picking Michigan to beat Georgia. Again, maybe I'm overreacting to the win over Penn State, but Michigan just impressed me in that game with what they were able to do, controlling that game, running the ball against a good defense. Like I said, their defense playing great. J.J. McCarthy making big-time throws, and he's just going to get better. Michigan will beat Georgia. That's my prediction right now and get to the national championship. And then you got Clemson and Alabama. I think Alabama's clearly the better team here if they play their best. Clemson's defensive line, they're going to give them a shot in this game. They should be able to slow down that Alabama run game, but can they get to Bryce Young? That'll be the question. Can they get to Bryce Young? It almost doesn't even matter anymore. The way he's able to maneuver in the pocket and avoid the pass rush, I mean, you almost can't get him down to the ground if it's just one guy. You have to have two guys coming at him from both sides. He kept doing that against Tennessee. He would just move around, dodge the defender, set his feet, make a perfect throw. I mean, this kid is unbelievable. And so I think he is able to make enough plays where that pass rush for Clemson maybe keeps this game close. Alabama, though, will take care of business and get the win, and they will advance to the national championship. So I think Michigan gets over the hump. They get to the national championship game. They win a playoff game. We've seen that happen before. Ohio State did it. They had struggled to win a playoff game, finally won a playoff game, and it didn't go so well for them in the national championship. I think that's kind of what happens here. I think Alabama wins it all. Look, this was my preseason pick. I know they lost to Tennessee. I know they've had some issues this year, but it's just hard to go against Nick Saban and Bryce Young. That combination, you just kind of think at the end of the year this team is going to be really tough to beat. They could still lose a game, though. It wouldn't shock me if they lose to Ole Miss on the road. Or maybe they do lose the SEC championship. So this is a very risky pick considering they already have a loss. I don't think this team is perfect. Again, when it comes down to those clutch games at the end of the season, Nick Saban's proven time and time again that he can do it. Bryce Young has come through for them many times already in close games. So I think they find a way to win these games. They get to the national championship. They win the national championship. And I'm going back to my preseason pick. I think I picked them last week as well to win it all. Alabama wins the national championship over Michigan. That's the big change for me. Will Michigan stay in my playoff prediction? We'll see over the next couple of weeks. Again, I want to see Ohio State, Penn State. I want to see that game really, really bad. I wish they could play this Saturday because I think that's when we find out about Ohio State. But like I said, we find out a little bit about them this weekend against a really good Iowa defense. If they're able to put up 50, 60 points against that defense, if they are, then it's going to be hard to pick against Ohio State. So that's what I'm looking forward to seeing the next few weeks. Ohio State, just how good are they? Can Clemson keep it rolling? Can Alabama bounce back? Will Tennessee test Georgia in a couple of weeks as well? A lot of big games coming up, and we will find out a lot more about these teams as the season progresses. What are your playoff picks? Who do you have winning it all? Give me your predictions down in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports College Football Channel.